points from the weekend. We might just spool back 24 hours because there's a good Kilkenny tint to what we saw last night. Is anybody in Kilkenny going to be afraid of what they saw from Dublin, or is there a sense they got a few dangerous threats up front, especially, that can cause a lot of problems next weekend?
Yeah, well, when Dublin are on song, you see, they can put it up to anyone. You look at last year, I know they got bit by Laois down in Port Laois, and that great day for Laois hurling, but previous to that, was it the week or two before that, they beat Galway. You know, Galway, who had been in the All-Ireland final the year before, All-Ireland champions the year before that. So on their day, Dublin can beat anyone. Looking at it last night, you had Liam Rush as a sub. You had Mark Shute coming on as a sub. Eamon Dillon coming on as a sub and scoring that great goal. They have the panel this year. So Kilkenny will be the favourites, no doubt, because of, they have the big names, and they seem to be from looking at the club campaign, they seem to be in the form of their lives as well. But Dublin, you've Owen O'Donnell full back, you've Donald Burke was brilliant there last night. He was incredible, from play and from frees. So Dublin, Brian Cody doesn't do complacency anyway. So they won't go in with Nelson in their head only, this is the biggest match of their lives. But they should be wary of Dublin, because on their day they can do anything. Yeah,
like what they showed in the Leinster Championship last year, sometimes forgotten because of the defeat to Laois. But they got out of their group, they beat Galway to get out of their group when it mattered, and that's the sort of kick that are in this Dublin team.
Yeah, there is, and the Matthew Kenny is over him. He's won 2 club All-Irelands and 2 county finals, well, probably more county finals with Coola when he was over that great Coola team. So there's a lot of them on that team, so they know how to win big games. They have been there on the biggest stage, beating the biggest counties. So yeah, there is a kick in him, and there's a toughness, like Chris Crummy. I love Chris Crummy. It's strange to see him up in the front, centre. He was always kind of that tenacious wing back, tenacious centre back. He kind of drives on the whole team. He's kind of like your Virgil van Dijk kind of that's the kind of presence I think he has. And up in the forwards, then he started shooting the lights out then again last night. But more importantly, probably going through the tackles and then laying off a pass. So he's definitely vital for the likes of Keane Boland. He more of a mover and more of a runner, type Aaron Galland type of player. On the other side you have Donald Burke as well. So yeah, I think Crummy, if he can come with the form that he's shown so far this year, there'll be a shout.
It's hard to not associate your Kilkenny feelings, I'd imagine, for what you saw from Limerick today, and the way Kilkenny performed against Limerick the last time they met in a big game. It's just hammered home to me today anyway, how impressive that performance was by Kilkenny last year, the way they tore into Limerick so early in that All-Ireland semi-final. Are they watching that from an All-Ireland sense today and thinking to themselves that Limerick are possibly going to come through the front door again this year, and they'd love to get another crack off them, perhaps even one stage further this year in an All-Ireland final? I know they won't be thinking it too far, but from your own perspective, what does today say about their prospective All-Ireland hopes?
Yeah, they probably won't. I think on their day, no matter who they're playing, they'll think they're going to beat them. Yeah. That's the way Brian Cody, that's the way the James McGarrys, that's the way they build up their teams going into any game. They don't ever feel inferior to anyone, no matter how many, we'll say, injuries they've had, no matter what their form is like in the league or the championship so far. Every game they treat it as a once-off, and I would kind of compare them a lot even to this Limerick teams, who seem to be similar type of an attitude. You go back to last year's All-Ireland semi-final, a lot of the kind of commentary after the game was Limerick might have got complacent and this and that. Limerick came back it was just an awesome performance from Kilkenny. They just came to the game and they just scored, and their intensity was just incredible. I think the Limerick probably hadn't experienced that intensity probably in that championship so far, and I'd say it just took them that couple of minutes to get used to it. But they were 7 or 8 points down to Kilkenny, came back into the game, went behind again to Kilkenny, and then only for the last, was it a 65 or wasn't a 65 from the sideline? That was the only thing separating them in the end. So I thought last year's semi-final was not because Limerick were poor. It was just one of these performances out of the, it was just brilliant from Kilkenny. So I think that's what I'll give them the belief, is that on their given day, as you said, if they can match Limerick, they can match anyone. They won't be thinking about Limerick, but they won't be afraid of anyone either,
We've kind of touched on this earlier on, but just to get your final opinion on this, how do you stop Limerick, basically?
A lot of luck, a few goals. Listen, they can be beaten, there's no doubt about it. Tipperary beat them last year. I'd say it was in the Munster round robin. Like, I was looking at the results coming up to this game today. Like, in their last 5 championship meetings with this Clare team, Clare had won 3 times, Limerick twice. That's since 2015. I know they beat Clare convincingly last year, but the previous 2 years Clare had won. So this Limerick team can be beaten. So they're playing Limerick, or playing Tipperary next week. I wouldn't see him as clear favourites in that game. That Tipperary team, you have the Bubbles, the Wires, Noel McGrath, John McGrath. Like, these are all players, once in a lifetime type players of their era, and a lot of them Tipperary players have 3 All-Irelands in their back pockets. They know how to win big games, whether it's Munsters, All-Ireland semi-finals or finals. Go back to All-Ireland semi-final last year, I thought was the character that Tipperary team showed. Man sent off, John McGrath, unfortunate there to be sent off, and looked like they were dead and buried, but they won that game. They didn't even get luck. They won the ball, played around with it over the bar, showed huge character. So I'd say Liam Sheedy will be happy enough looking at that today, because I always find when you're playing a top team, when the win be 10 or 12 points, it's much it's much easier coming kind of under the radar towards if Limerick had a poor game today, they'd be all guns blazing the next day. So I'd give it Tipperary every chance next week.
Finally then, Tommy, the big talking point of the weekend, yay or nay on the yellow slitter?
I keep forgetting about it, so I only see it. I notice it in the warm-ups, and it looks like there's a lot of tennis balls around, and I saw the lads, they weren't allowed in the pitch probably earlier on. They were poking around here, and I was wondering why they were poking around with tennis balls. I said, this must be a new thing. I was going to tell the Royal manager to get a few tennis balls for us. So listen, I don't really notice them. The one thing I was worried about was that the players were saying they used them in Boston last year, and they were rock hard, and they were kind of breaking their hurls and weren't travelling very far, but there was no problem with them there. Like your old Hegarty, Kyle, they're all scoring them off the run there tonight. Keane Boland last night, so that is grand. I don't really mind either way, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think Limerick mind too much either. No. Cheers, Tommy.
All right, Eoin, good man.